Welcome to this Rugby Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting, this Wednesday the 12th of March. I'm Councillor Tony Gillies, the chairman of this committee. The meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting,
You have to be me.
does that sound any better? That sounds better, yeah. During the meeting, when asked to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction and everyone to hear you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'm obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask that you make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of February. All those in favour, please show. You'll get your turn. So that's okay, that's approved. Thank you very much for that. I'll sign those minutes. Second item is to receive apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Howling and Freeman, with Councillor Livesey here as substitute for Councillor Freeman.
Thank you very much. Well done. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. Non-pecuniary interests. Councillor Sibadasta.
Sorry. R204 0103, I'm a ward councillor.
Any more non-pecuniary? No, that's pecuniary interests. No. Notice of Section 106 Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. No, we're all innocent. Excellent. In that case, then we'll move on to agenda item number 4. But first of all, we'll just go over the rules for speaking, so everybody's clear what's going on. First of all, the planning officer will speak first and present the application. The committee will then be asked if they have any points of clarification from the officer. The representatives for the objectors, the applicants, and then the ward councillor will each be invited to speak. The planning officer can address any material issues arising from speakers' comments and accept questions from the councillors. Any ward councillor or councillor who speaks on an application as part of the public speaking process shall leave the meeting once all speakers have completed their presentations relating to it. The committee will then go into debate on the application, asking relevant questions of the planning officer if necessary. A formal recommendation will be made and voted upon. And the rules for public speaking: speakers will have 3 minutes to make their representation or their presentation. They will be warned by a short alarm when they have 30 seconds left, and then a further alarm will sound when their time has expired. Their presentation should then be brought to a halt, and no extra time will be allowed. All speakers should direct their presentations to amplifying the planning matters they have already provided and put to the benefit of the committee. Speakers should restrict their comments to material planning considerations only. Any non-planning issues will be disregarded. Speakers should not introduce any additional information that has not been previously brought to the planning authority's attention, i.e. introduce late items that have not been suitably considered by officers and properly addressed in the officer's report to the committee for councillors' deliberation. No visual aids or handouts may be used, and no questions to officers or councillors will be allowed. No members of the public are allowed to take part in the debate once their presentation has been given. And so I'll move on to the first item to determine, which is R24/011. Over to Ella. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the redevelopment of the former football pitch and tennis courts associated with the adjacent employment use to the north, including demolition of the existing pavilion and all other remaining structures and enclosures relating to that previous use of the site. An erection of 115 dwellings, accesses, landscaping, parking, drainage features and associated works. The site is to the northwest of Rugby Town Centre, within walking distance of Caldecott Park and town centre amenities. It is bounded by the Army Reserve Centre and Indian Community Centre to the west, both of which are accessed from Edward Street, with existing residential development beyond, as well as further residential development access from York Street to the southwest and from Essex Street, Princes Street, King Street and Hill Street to the east. The site to the north, the site is bounded by the remaining GE site, which is now Arabelle Solutions. To the south, it is adjoined by land owned by Rugby Borough Council, known as Rounds Gardens, and there is a public footpath in between the two sites. The land is currently vacant and consists of a pavilion and former recreation ground and a disused car park that are all historically associated with the employment use to the north. The site has not been used for 20 years and is overgrown. This shows various site photos of the site currently. You've got the central crescent of the trees within the middle of the site, which you'll see on the site layout when we get to that point. The former sports pitch, which is the land in the middle of those central crescent of trees. You've got the site to the west, the adjacent footpath on North Street, and then the western edge of the site, including the access from Willens Place. There's an access road along the north perimeter of the site, which is a private road. The former 3 tennis courts are shown at the bottom of this screen, and then the former sports pitch and pavilion is also shown. This is the proposed site layout, and it includes 2 development parcels. To the east, it would be accessed from Princes Street, and to the west, it would be accessed from Willens Place. In total, there's 115 dwellings proposed, which has been reduced from 134, which was originally proposed. There are 2 1-beds, 34 2-beds, 64 3-beds, and 15 4-beds proposed. The proposed development includes the creation of green open space within the centre of the site, as well as a SUDS attenuation basin and a green open space to the east of the site, to the rear of the properties on Princes Street. This would provide amenity green space and natural and semi-natural green space. In terms of an application update, a late item addendum was published yesterday, which set out various comments from the applicant in relation to the 7 reasons for refusal. There is now 6 reasons for refusal, with the ecology reason being removed due to conditions being able to be put on the application. There is no further update since this addendum. The key issues to consider for this application are assessment of strategic planning policies, loss of the sports provision, housing supply and mix, layout and design, trees and green infrastructure, ecology, flood risk and drainage, and highways. In relation to the strategic planning policies, the site is within the urban area of Rugby, which is the most sustainable location within the borough. The council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. The principle of housing on this site is acceptable, subject to all matters, including the loss of the sports provision and any other matter within the committee report being satisfactorily addressed. In relation to the loss of sporting provision, as mentioned, there is a former sports pitch, which is an 11v11 football pitch, a sports pavilion and car park, and 3 tennis courts on the site. In relation to the MPPF, this should be assessed against paragraph 104, and there are 3 criteria. It is a 3-stage test, and therefore only one limb needs to be satisfied of this policy. C is not being proposed in this instance, therefore only an assessment against A and B, which is if the provision is surplus to requirement or if it would be replaced elsewhere with equivalent or better provision has been assessed. In relation to Part A, the football pitch is not surplus to requirement. There is a need within the playing pitch strategy, which was published in 2023. In relation to tennis courts, it cannot be said that the supply is currently sufficient to meet demand. In relation to Part B, which is if it would be replaced by equivalent or better provision elsewhere. In relation to the football pitch, it is agreed in principle that the sports pitch, pavilion and car park can be mitigated off-site. However, it's considered that the level of mitigation proposed within the application by the applicant does not adequately address the loss of the sports pitch in this location. In relation to the tennis courts, due to the mitigation proposal directed to Caldicott Park, which is £30,000, it is considered that the provision will be improved elsewhere to provide better accessible provision that will address capacity concerns. So in conclusion, in relation to the football pitch and the associated car park and pavilion, it's considered that the mitigation proposed does not replace the lost provision by equivalent or better provision in terms of the quantity and quality in a suitable location. In relation to housing supply and mix, the scheme has been shown to be unviable, and this has been verified by an independent consultant. Therefore, no affordable housing is proposed. In relation to the market housing on the site, it's considered that on balance, due to the viability implications, that the proposed mix is considered to be acceptable. In relation to layout and design, this is some of the house type examples that are proposed on the site. And this shows the street scenes throughout. And we have various photo montages to show what the development would look like. So this is at the junction of Edward Street and Gladstone Street looking to the east. So this would be the access off Willans Place. This is a viewpoint from the south of the Indian Community Centre entrance gate. This would be the view from York Street play area. And this is along King Street towards Princes Street. And then at the Hill Street, Princes Street junction towards the public footpath. And this is the view of the existing and proposed public footpath with the development. In relation to layout and design, the scheme has been assessed against 8 of the 10 characteristics within the National Design Guide listed within this slide. In relation to context and identity, it's not considered that the development enhances or complements its surroundings. It is considered that the proposed layout does not address its surrounding context adequately. In relation to built form, proposed on the site, it doesn't contribute to a cohesive character or identity and fails to establish a strong sense of place or create an attractive, welcoming and distinctive place to live. In relation to nature, the site is located within the green infrastructure network, and we'll come on to that later within the presentation. In relation to uses, resources and home and buildings, the scheme is considered to be acceptable. The proposed scheme overall it does not provide a high-quality, well-designed place and would have a detrimental adverse impact on the character of the area. The design does not relate to the existing wider context of the area, and there are key design issues. In relation to trees and green infrastructure, the site is within the green infrastructure corridor, as shown on the bottom right of this slide. This slide also shows the proposed landscaping strategy, which does retain the crescent of trees within the centre of the site, which are protected by a tree preservation order, and the green infrastructure surrounding that area. It also shows the retention of the trees to the rear of Princes Street, which are again protected by a tree preservation order. This plan shows the tree preservation orders in place around the site. There are 4 key groups. As mentioned, the central area and the trees to the rear of Princes Street are retained. G1 on that plan, which is to the western development parcel, would be removed in its entirety. There are 13 Category A trees proposed to be removed on the site, all of which are protected by TPO and are in the western parcel of the development. There are 12 Category B trees proposed to be removed, one of which is a TPO birch tree within the centre of the site. The mitigation proposed includes the introduction of 133 standard trees, equating to a replanting ratio of approximately 2:1. The arboricultural assessment submitted with the application states that the clearance of protected tree cover will generate a high bar for mitigation, given their quality and contribution to amenity. It is not considered that the 2:1 ratio of replanting adequately addresses the loss of TPO Category A and B trees within the site. In relation to ecology, various species has been assessed throughout the site, and it's considered that conditions would control bats, badgers, hedgehogs, and any other protected species which could be found in the future. There was no evidence of reptiles or hazel dormouse, and a SEMP would be in place to protect breeding birds. Therefore, any potential impact on protected species can be mitigated against through planning conditions. In relation to net gain, this will not be achieved on site. However, this will be achieved through biodiversity credits or units, which the applicant has agreed to. The site is within flood zone 1. However, as you can see on the bottom image, it has a high risk of surface flooding. In relation to the development itself, the lead local flood authorities of Warwickshire County Council have no objections. Due to the high level of surface water flooding, however, a sequential test is required and has not been passed on this site. In relation to highways, as mentioned, there would be 2 accesses, one from Willens Place and one from Princes Street. A one-way system is proposed around the Princes Street area, as shown on the diagram on the right-hand side. Car parking provision across the site is acceptable. Off-site walking and cycling routes are also considered acceptable. There would be storage provision provided per dwelling on the site, and there are on-site walking and cycling provision throughout the site. In relation to strategic modelling and modelling of the Newbold Road junctions, further road safety audits are required, and the modelling outcomes are not agreed between the County Council and the applicant. Physical measures and traffic calming need to be considered from the development to the east still. It's considered that the modelling information submitted as part of the application does not demonstrate that there would not be a significant impact from the development upon the transport network in terms of capacity and congestion. It has also not been shown that there would be a suitable and safe access for all users from the site. In relation to air quality, pollution, residential amenity, climate change and sustainable design and community infrastructure levy, these have been assessed as acceptable, some subject to conditions as outlined within the committee report. As mentioned, there's been an independently assessed viability review. As part of this application, it is agreed that the site is inviable and that no level of affordable housing can be provided at this stage. There is, however, an early stage review that would be part of any Section 106, and this would be a review if permission has not been implemented within 2 years, and then a late stage review following the sale of the 75% of the units. Due to the viability issues, this outlines the heads of terms that the applicant has agreed to, even in light of the viability issues. There is an element of obligation towards sports mitigation, both tennis and football provision. The viability review mechanism is included as discussed. High-rise mitigation is to be confirmed as that is still outstanding in part, and the monitoring fees have also been included. In terms of the planning balance, the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. Therefore, the tilted balance, as set out within paragraph 11D of the framework, applies. It has been assessed that the sequential test for flood risk has not passed. This, therefore, is an 11DI consideration, which disengages the tilted balance. Therefore, a standard planning balance should be undertaken. In relation to other harms, as set out within the committee report and this presentation, the football pitch, pavilion and associated car park is not considered to have the required level of mitigation. This has moderate weight in the balance. The proposed scheme does not provide a high quality, well-designed place and would have a detrimental adverse impact on the character of the area. This holds significant weight. There would be a loss of existing green infrastructure, which holds moderate weight. The loss of the TPO trees to the west of the site would be detrimental to the character of the area. As a significant group and prominent feature within the street scene, this holds significant weight. In relation to the high-rise issues discussed, this also holds significant weight, and notwithstanding the viability assessment, there would be a significant and detrimental impact on education provision, play and open space, libraries, road safety funding, sports provision, mitigation, public rights of way, health and monitoring funding. This holds significant weight in the balance. Weighed against this is the government's commitment to significantly boost the supply of housing through the framework. The 115 market dwellings proposed holds significant weight. In relation to the economic benefits, there would be construction jobs and spend. The development would support local services through household spending. There would be additional council tax revenue and new homes bonus, and all of these benefits hold significant weight. In relation to the social aspect, there would be accessible open space, which holds significant weight in the balance. New public footpaths are proposed across the site, and there would be enhanced active travel linkages, which hold moderate weight. In relation to the environmental benefits, there would be additional tree planting and landscaped areas, sustainable urban drainage systems, and a biodiversity net gain achieved. These hold moderate weight within the balance. Overall, the proposal will result in a conflict with policies as outlined, and in relation to loss of sports provision, design, TPO trees, failure to comply with the flood risk for sequential tests, high raise and pressure on existing infrastructure. Weighed against the identified harm is the economic, social and environmental benefits identified. The presumption in favour of sustainable development as set out within 11D is not engaged in relation to the tilted balance. It is considered that when the overall harm is weighed against the benefits, that on balance the identified sustainable harm, substantial harm, outweighs the benefits. Therefore, the application would result in a form of unsustainable development, and it is recommended for refusal subject to the 6 reasons for refusal as set out in the draft decision notice appended to the committee report addendum.
Right, so before we move on to speakers, we've got a few speakers on this one. Are there any points of clarification from the councillors to ask the officer? All okay? Councillor Lawrence.
Just point of clarity on the highways. For me, it's undecided. So you could just condition it to say, if it was approved, that you could condition it just to say it will be based upon a highways approval. Is that not so?
It's not something that we would normally do, no, because we like to assess what the impact would be. So if we were to condition it and the modelling outcome were to come back and say, actually, the development isn't acceptable for X, Y and Z, then the development would have planning permission then. So there could be a recommendation from this meeting to say, well, go away and look at the highways information, but it wouldn't be a condition. If that makes sense.
It does. But then I don't understand why I'm looking at something which hasn't got the full set of information. Because if there is a highways rejection on this, which we haven't got, that would be a condition, but I'm unclear. We haven't got nothing.
So the highway, Warwickshire County Council have objected to the application based on the information they have seen. So the information presented, they haven't determined whether there would be an acceptable impact on the highway network. So that's why there are two highways reasons for refusal on this application. So it's been presented based on the information that has been submitted as part of the application and the assessment that has been made by both County Council and officers here.
Okay, thank you for the clarity on that. Just on the flooding and the sequential test, can you just talk me through that? Has you're saying it's not passed, has it failed?
Yes, so there's two elements to flood risk. So Warwickshire County Council assessed the technical aspect of flooding in terms of will there be an impact on kind of neighbouring areas or the site, or what impact will the development have. They don't have any objections. The second element of flood risk is that if there is either the development is within certain flood zones, or if there's a high chance of a certain type of flooding on the site, so in this instance surface water flooding, then a sequential test has to be done. So the test will look at any other sites within the specified area. So in this instance it's likely to be the town centre, so the urban area, and any sites that are near to the urban area. And if they are sequentially preferable in terms of flood risk, then the sequential test would be failed. In this instance, a sequential test has only been done for the site, not for the wider area, so that's why it's failed.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, 2 points. With regard to the objection by Warwickshire County Council, is that because it only shows a one-way system around the whole development?
Not necessarily. It's in relation to the information that they've had to date, so they don't feel that they've had enough information to be... So
the quality of the information from the applicant has not been sufficient for them to make a determination on?
Yes, so there's been some information presented to the County Council, but the County Council feel that they require further information.
Right. The other is the TPO'd A quality trees. Trees are a very good absorber of water. If those trees were removed, would it increase the likelihood of on-site flooding?
It's not likely to increase the on-site flooding. It may have a certain impact, but the flood risk assessment has been undertaken based on the proposed development, which would have accounted for what trees would have been removed. So that's not likely to have an impact on flood risk, no.
Okay, has that answered all the questions on that one? In that case, then we'll move on to the speakers, and the first speaker is Tamsin Kay. Is that, have I pronounced that correctly? Okay.
Okay then.
Okay, you got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay then, good evening. My name is Tamsin Key, resident of Princes Street, living adjacent to the land. I represent the views of all local residents objecting to this proposal, having spoken with most of those residents locally. In February 2004, we attended and we held a public meeting about this proposal. 53 locals attended and 51 of those, on looking at the plans, actually decided to sign letters of objection. We also collected letters of objection from other impacted residents, consequently collecting over 300 letters of objection, and following certain adjustments, another 100 letters were collected and sent in. Thus, the community has given clear evidence that the proposed development is unwanted and approval would go wildly against the community's wishes. Our main two areas of concern, amongst others, are impact of traffic and parking, and secondly, the impact on our trees and biodiversity. The proposed one-way system is designed around the current route of the waste removal truck. The streets are single carriage, just one car at a time. The waste collection will impact on the flow, and actually on the days that it's actually going, cars are going to be queuing behind that truck, and it's going to impact very badly and cause huge bottlenecks. This Victorian-era estate was never designed to absorb traffic at this level. Newbold Road already exists as a problematic thoroughfare due to the volume of traffic. Cars will need to exit the estate onto this road. They will need to go either into the traffic or against the traffic. It is going to result in increased waiting, stress, and unacceptable congestion. The development relies on grossly unsuitable roads and must be through another route if agreed. There's going to be unacceptable loss of parking to residents on all surrounding streets. This is going to have a knock-on effect across the whole area. Then we've got houses of multiple occupancies using increasing places, 3 recently. Residents are already paying for a parking lottery in this area, and they're going to be taking away more of those places. They're going to be ring-fenced for some of the actual places that are going to be built. It's going to be untenable for existing residences, so parking, therefore, must be provided to mitigate the loss of resident parking. And I also want to point out about the flooding that just came up, that we already have flooding in several basements. Impact on trees and biodiversity. The tree cover is an asset. There's application has been submitted 3 days prior to higher biodiversity net requirements. No loopholes to bypass this legislation should be given, and it must meet the latest legislative requirements. The design is not in keeping with the rest of our houses. It makes the whole place look hodgepodge. Is that me? Thank you. I did as best as I could at the time. Cheers.
Well done, thank you. So has the Speaker raised any questions that the councillors want the officer to respond to? Councillor Sam Edwards.
Thank you for that. I'm mindful of the biodiversity loss with the trees that will potentially be cut down. Are you aware of what species might that affect?
Sorry, you've got to ask the officer.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, Speaker's had their 3 minutes. Okay.
Yes, so in relation to the trees that will be removed, so the category A13 trees, which are on the western side of the development, they're London Plane and Lime. There will be another London Plane, there'll be a birch tree removed within the centre of the development that is TPO'd. And then there will be 58 category C trees removed of various different species, and another 12 category U trees removed of various different species.
Is that okay?
I was more meaning if there's any other sort of creatures that habitat within the trees.
So ecology have assessed that. There is bats around the site, but ecology have stated that can be dealt with via condition. There are some other protected species as well, but so badgers, and they're at the bottom of the trees, not necessarily in the trees. But ecology have assessed that they can be dealt with through condition.
Councillor Livesey.
Yeah, I believe that the proposal says that they will do 2-for-1 planting, but that will be with standard trees. What are standard trees, please?
Yes, so there's different levels of tree planting that you can get. So you can have the little kind of, this is not going to be very technical, so excuse me, but the little smaller kind of twig-like shrubs, and then you go all the way up to standard, extra heavy standard, and there's different levels. So it will be, I think standard is, I can search it, but I think it's around 100 centimetres in height-ish, but I'll confirm that now. Just give me one moment.
Okay, we'll just get Ella to respond and we'll... All right, okay.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I've got a standard down as about 2.5 metres tall, a heavy standard up to about 3.5 metres tall, but obviously the girth will be bigger each time, and then a extra heavy standard looking at probably 3.5 to 4 metres with a much larger girth. So it's obviously smaller ones. We then obviously whips and feathered trees and light standard below standard.
Councillor Carrido.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the parking, can you please explain a little bit more about the parking inside the development? I believe there are quite a lot of single-bedroom houses, and then it goes up to 4-bedroom houses. For each and every type of properties, how many parkings are going to be allocated?
So there's 2 1-bedroom dwellings, and then yes, there's various 2, 3 and 4-bedroom dwellings. It's a high access zone in terms of parking, so it adheres to Appendix 5 of the local plan. So let me just bring that up one moment. So there would be 1 parking space for the 1 and 2 bed units, 1 parking space for the 3 bed, and 1.5 for the 4 beds. That's the local plan standard, so that's the minimum required. I think from memory on the proposed layout, it's 2 for 4 beds. And then 1 for all of the dwelling types, so it does comply with policy.
I agree it is in our policy. So for example, are we going to assume that a 1-bedroom is going to be 1 person who is going to drive a car, or if it is a 4-bedroom house, they are going to have 1 car and half a car? And
yeah, so the 4-bedroom have 2 parking spaces.
All right. If there is if there is an adult children living there, where are they going to park their car? Are they going to come into the other spaces like Edward Street and other streets? and are those streets are capable of containing these extra cars?
So in relation to the layout of the proposed site, yes, in relation to the 3-bed houses are all 2 spaces, and 4 beds are a mixture of 2 and 3. As you've said, if there is a family living in those houses, there could be more cars, but that's a scenario that may take place, it may not take place. So we have the local plan minimum parking standards, so that we have kind of that minimum to assess against. So it does comply with policy. If a house has 5 or 6 cars, then yes, they will have to find other areas to park in. That could be on the site within the development, it could be elsewhere, but that is not something that we can necessarily plan for in the remit of this planning application.
Councillor Sebastova.
Any assessment on the provision of school facilities for family children?
Yeah, so Warwickshire County Council have requested a contribution towards education due to the viability of the site. That will not be paid. It won't be part of the Section 106 because the site's unviable. There will be a SIL receipt that is attached to the development, which is about it's about £600,000. The education contribution, I think, was 1.2 million though. So the education contribution could not be paid out of that SIL receipt. So there would be an impact on education that the County Council will have to fund in this instance.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. The residents expressed a concern regarding the design of the dwellings, and that those dwellings were not in keeping with the locality. Do we advise the applicant on what's an acceptable design for for the locality?
Yes, there's been various different conversations throughout the application in relation to design. As you can see tonight, one of the reasons for refusal is in relation to design, along the similar lines as to what you've stated, Councillor Sanderson. In this location, it's considered that it would be a high-density urban design that would be reflective of the character of the area that would be acceptable.
Okay, and we'll move on to the next speaker, which is the agent, Debbie Farrington. Thanks for coming along. You too have got 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. We are disappointed that the proposals are recommended for refusal and consider that the scheme has been brought to committee too soon. We believe that most of the reasons for refusal cited can be overcome within a very short timescale, which will enable officers to reach a favourable recommendation. The reasons for refusal are the sequential test for flood risk has not been applied properly. This issue was never raised by officers throughout the pre-application or application process. Our flood risk assessment includes a site-specific sequential assessment of flood risk and demonstrates that dwellings will not be located within areas of high flood risk. We have, since finding out this is a reason for refusal, have instructed that a sequential test is undertaken immediately to address this issue. It's important to note that the LLFA raised no objection to the proposals. Mitigation for loss of the football pitch. Sport England object, but we must stress that the land has not been in use for sport use for over 20 years. Our sports mitigation strategy confirms that this is a lapsed site, which was agreed with officers prior to submission. Highways. The Highways Authority has recommended that the applicant undertakes a further road safety audit in relation to the speed reduction measures. This can be secured by condition. We are waiting for the HA to provide comments on the additional junction modelling, which we provided at their request and do not anticipate an objection to. Trees. 159 replacement trees will be planted and 62 of the 76 protected trees on site will be retained and brought into the public realm, which will enhance their value to the local community. Design and layout. The amended scheme proposes fewer dwellings, retains an increased number of protected trees and increases density of the proposed development. Since its submission, officers have refused to engage with us to understand the constraints which would prevent further urbanisation of the scheme without adversely impacting on garden sizes, separation distances and parking provision. The proposals would make a positive contribution to this highly sustainable edge-of-town centre location and deliver much-needed high-quality housing. This is a very important consideration as the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land. We disagree with the planning balance undertaken and consider that, in fact, the benefits arising would outweigh the harms. To conclude, the application is being brought to committee prematurely. Council's advice has been sought and the applicant is prepared to appeal against refusal on the strength of the advice received. We encourage members to support this application or, failing that, we request that the decision be deferred to allow time for the outstanding flood risk and highways matters to be resolved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions that are raised for the councillors to ask the officer?
Questions to the officer. When was this application first submitted and how much engagement has there been with the applicant over that time period?
The application was submitted in February 24 and there has been engagement throughout the whole of the last year. There was also prior engagement in terms of pre-application processes as well.
Councillor Lawrence.
Has the applicant been provided a design code to which they are to...
So there's not a design code that relates to this development because we don't have one as part of the development plan at the moment. We are looking to introduce them as part of the new local plan, but currently there is not a design code. However, there is a national design guide, and that is what the application has been assessed against. So that's the high-level design principles.
Any further comment? No? Okay. In that case, then we'll move on to the ward councillor. Councillor Harrington.
Yeah, good evening all. I'm Richard Harrington, one of the councillors for Ben Ward. Tonight I'm looking for the committee to reject the application as the officers has recommended. There's plenty of reasons, there's 6. I just want to say thank you for the officer for the report and the communication throughout the application. A little bit disappointed from Severn Trent, an environmental agency with no response, as to the main sewer and flooding on that plain. Some of the reasons I say losing 40% of biodiversity, which is absolutely going to kill that area for that, with that. Also, as well, there was actually a report done for the badgers, and in the report it says it wasn't done at optimal time with methodology and did not appear to follow the relevant guidance. So it seems to be that report hasn't been done to the local standard. Relation to sports loss and field and tennis courts. They've been obviously let go for all these years, but this has been ongoing since 2001. So, to be honest with you, why they've been land banking for this for such a long time and not actually using it. Also, there's no football pitch in Ben Ward or New Bilton. Also, the tennis courts, in part of the report, it said it will migrate to Collicutt Park, where you're going to put 3 extra tennis courts. There's only 2 there, and also they've spent a lot of money refurbishing recently. Highway safety is a main issue of the area. The main route itself, location, and they've had problems with fire engines going down the street, and having that small access from Princes Street doesn't make any sense at all. The biggest issue as well is regarding New Bold Road. At the moment, it's like a car park, you can't get down it, and also we're supposed to be having a new roundabout at Avon Mill. I went to the meeting on that, and there was no consultation from the applicant to Warwickshire County Council, so all their data will be out of date, which is not good for them. Just want to say a massive thank you to the residents who've been involved, door knocking, leaf drop-in, and just being togetherness with the community is fantastic. I just want to finish on this final thought. The land itself is between Ben and New Bilton. It's the lungs of the wards. You're not going to get that back. And for me personally, the infrastructure's not around it, and this would be an absolutely amazing wildlife park within the town centre. And I think that's the only thing you could do it for. So for me personally, I'm looking for obviously rejection for it, but hopefully this will go through. But thank you for listening.
Are there any issues raised by the ward councillor that committee members want to ask the officer to respond to? All okay? Okay, in that case then, thank you very much for attending.
For the benefit of the live stream, Councillor Harrington, as ward councillor, has left the chamber for the duration of the debate and resolution of this matter.
Right, we'll move on to debate then. Right, who wants to kick this off for us? I know there was the issue raised about parking standards, so that could well be addressed in the forthcoming preferred options consultation when that comes up. We can get that right for the next time. Councillor Lawrence.
I was hoping one of my other fellow councillors would start, but I will start. I think this is about balance. I think there are strong arguments, but there are strong arguments on both sides. In December 2024, the new government has applied additional demands on us. Okay? So we have to build more buildings in. These buildings are being proposed in greenbelt land. Okay? Which, this is a mystery to me. From the 1970s and backwards, we protected greenbelt before, and we're considering greenbelt now. So we've now got this environment here, which is derelict land that's been derelict for as long as I can remember, and I used to live fairly locally to this piece of land. And so I don't find the argument strong in terms of sport pitches. I never played football there myself. I can't remember anybody who ever did. Maybe back in time when GEC was 6,000 people on rugby, that may have been true, back in the 1980s or something, but a long time ago. Okay, so I don't find the sports pitch one strong. I find the sustainability of the place and the need to build in that place very strong. Okay, so now we get to some of the northern nuances. Layout and design, from the pictures I saw, it looked okay. There is no design code being applied. You can always make it better. I think that could have been a conversation held with the developers to make it look better, be more suitable. Trees, I never like trees being chopped down, and my fellow councillor around me know that I go for the green issues as much as possible. But then I'm being told that we're going to build in Greenbelt. And I find, well, this is one of these ludicrous situations. So Warren put standard trees in, why can't we ask for extra large trees to be put in? Some level of more mitigation in place. So I'm not finding the argument strong enough. They could be mitigated more. So now I'm down to the sequential test on flooding, but that could have been done. We haven't got a result. Highways, we're still waiting for highways to properly conclude. So I'm unable to make a decision. So what I would like to do is defer it. We need to build in this place because of the strain we've got on housing demand. But I can understand the reasons why there have been objections put in place. But I think some of those could be removed. So I would vote for deferral of this. And we can probably work out the words for deferral, but I would move for deferral.
Right, Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Having looked at this application in some detail, this is an awful mic. No wonder this is the one that goes wrong for Councillor Mystery, isn't it? This application has been about since February of last year. There's been ample time to resolve most of the matters that have been raised tonight. I'm not sure if we're not just prolonging the agony for the applicants by deferring it yet again, spreading it along a little bit longer. It doesn't meet our design statement criteria. There are concerns regarding highways. The loss of the mature trees is significant because every mature tree can hold about 40 gallons of water at a time. So you would take a large number of them out, you're actually increasing the overall flow of water onto the site. It doesn't take much to do the maths to work that one out. Now, this is private land, and the loss of the playing pitches is sad. I wish we had a big checkbook and we could go and buy those football pitches and put them back into use. We can't. But on balance, I think the officer has proven beyond reasonable doubts that this application should be refused because the applicant has got the right to the appeal, the residents don't. So I'd like to move refusal as printed, Chair.
Councillor Carradine.
I second that decision to refuse the application.
Councillor Mrs. Livesey.
Yes, so I just want to endorse the comments that Councillor Sanderson has made, but also thinking about some of the common complaints that we've had over new development in Rugby for the last few years about the lack of infrastructure. And the thing that concerns me deeply about this proposal is that there will be no contribution to education. That means that people will have to travel to take their children to school, to primary school or to secondary school, so we'll have more traffic on Newbold Road at peak times. Our schools, which are already oversubscribed, will be even more oversubscribed, and I think that this is a reason to turn it down, because we do need to think about the infrastructure and the contribution that ought to be coming for that.
Have we got any further speakers? No? In that case then, do you want us to move to the vote? We've got a mover for refusal and a seconder for refusal. All those in favour of refusal, please show.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What are you doing?
And those against? So that was 8 votes for refusal and 2 against. So that is refused. Okay, we'll move on to the next one for which is R240103. Thank you.
This application is the land north of Projects Drive in Rugby. It is for the construction of 108 dwellings with associated access, roads, parking and landscaping. It's located on the existing site, which is has a large commercial building alongside other ancillary buildings, and these are all associated with GE Energy power conversion. The site also comprises associated car parking to the northwest and east, and landscaping is mainly along the boundaries, with the largest landscape buffer being to the north boundary with the Oxford Canal, except for a grassed area to the northeast of the site. The northern part of the site is also the highest level. The site gradient declines towards Projects Drive with a decrease of approximately 3.5 metres across the site. The site is approximately 2.47 hectares and it has the disused commercial building on site. There has also previously been a power approval application for the demolition of the buildings on site, which has been approved by the authority. The main and secondary accesses are off Projects Drive, and whilst there is no public rights of way on the site, these run adjacent to the canal to the north and along Projects Drive to the south. The land uses are predominantly residential, industrial and retail in the surrounding area. The existing accesses from Projects Drive are to be stopped up, and a new access is proposed directly from Projects Drive to the southwest of the site. These are some photographs that show firstly the building on site, the existing access, and the third picture is the beech tree, which is proposed for removal as part of the application. Some additional photographs from around the site are also present on this slide. The proposed housing mix comprises of 32 one-bedroom properties. These are either as flats or masonettes. There is 36 two-bedroom properties, 16 of which are flats and 20 are dwelling houses, 36 three-bedroom dwelling houses and 4 four-bedroom dwelling houses. All of the dwellings and masonettes will be either 2-storey or 2.5-storey, and the flats will be 3 to 3.5-storey. The development will provide a mixture of semi-detached properties and small terraces and will be finished in either red or buff brick, samples of which are to be agreed with the local planning authority. Some of the house type examples. The dwelling houses are proposed to be in a mix of red and buff brick with varying canopy porches. There's 3 character area designs have been used throughout the site to help define and establish different areas. Frontage style facing onto Projects Drive with a central style which are seen throughout the central areas, and also canal style which maximise the opportunities for views over the canal whilst ensuring they are appropriate in design to this more publicly viewable area. Variations between these character areas see the properties have a mix of gable and pitched roofs, which helps to break up the roofscape, and Juliet balconies to the apartments. Traditional brickwork, contemporary windows, brick detailing and doors are also proposed across the house types. Some further examples of the 3 beds, 4 beds. The majority of the dwellings are set back from the highway and have parking either to the side or rear within parking courtyards. This arrangement will ensure that there is no loss to visual amenity by reason of parked cars being to the side or set within landscape courtyards. Here we have the apartment examples and then the masonettes. As outlined in the report, there was a number of representations in regards to the application. This was due to concerns in regards to various issues, and each will be addressed as we proceed. In terms of the principle of development as outlined to the committee this evening, currently a 5-year housing land supply the council is not in receipt of which has been updated following the changes to the NPPF in December, and therefore the tilde balance would be triggered in regards to this proposal. The site is previously developed land, and this is the redevelopment of such, subject to there being no unacceptable impact, is supported by both the NPPF and policy GP3 of the local plan. In terms of the loss of employment land, policy ED1 identifies 6 tests that need to be applied. In terms of when this is done, it has not been satisfied due to insubstantial evidence that the site could not be redeveloped for employment or for a mix of uses. However, paragraph 128 of the NPPF states that LPAs should take a positive approach to applications for alternative uses of land which is currently developed but not allocated for a specific purpose in plans, which relates to this application. In particular, proposals to use retail and employment land for homes in areas of high housing demand should be supported, subject to compliance with other policies within the framework. The proposed development is on previously developed land within the urban area of Rugby as outlined in policy GP1, but there would be the conflict with policy, within the urban area of Rugby as outlined in policy GP1, but there would be the conflict with policy ED1, and this will need to be weighed within the planning balance. Going through some of the key issues in terms of the site, this proposal is for 100% affordable homes, is the provision. The supply and mix as outlined in the report has been assessed in coordination with RBC Housing, and it is considered that that mix is acceptable in relation to this site. In terms of the layout and design, it is considered that the proposed scheme provides a high quality place and would not have a detrimental adverse impact on the character of the area. In relation to trees, as I'd mentioned at the site photograph stage, the proposal does require the removal of a mature purple-leaved beech tree. It is highlighted within the applicant's tree report as a category A2 tree, which is a high quality tree of particular visual importance. It is the most prominent tree as you enter Projects Drive from Borton Road and forms a significant visual amenity feature. The proposed access is in a position where this tree will need to be required to be removed. The council's arboricultural officer has not objected to this, given that there are no alternative, safe or suitable alternative options to locate a vehicular access into the site, and substantial tree planting is proposed throughout the scheme as a whole. There is also soft landscaping proposed throughout the site. In regards to climate change and sustainable design, this has been addressed through the proposals to be implemented as part of the scheme as outlined in the officer report. With regards to residential amenity, the dwellings proposed all meet the national space standards required of each of the property sizes proposed. Garden sizes meet that which are outlined within the council's climate change and sustainable design SPD, and the relevant distances are also achieved between existing and proposed properties on the site. In regards to ecology, with a contribution agreed to be paid, a net gain can be achieved whilst it won't be on site. There is that proposal has been agreed, and therefore it is in compliance with the local plan policies. Air quality measures are also proposed to be introduced to ensure that the application is air quality neutral. In terms of flooding, this application site is wholly within flood zone 1. There is SUDS to be provided as part of the proposal, and the LLFA are content subject to the conditions outlined within the report. Contamination and noise have been assessed and addressed throughout the report, with conditions included to ensure that any issues can be suitably addressed. In regards to highways, a road safety audit stage 1 has been completed. With the consideration of the proposal, assessed that there would be fewer trips generated from the site from the housing development than that which is currently previously undertaken there. Each property has been provided with parking and cycle provision, and there's also electric charging to be proposed on the site. It is considered that the proposed street scenes show variation and architectural interest, and that this will result in the area having an increasing and well-defined character with features of interest, variety and definition within the street scene. Other technical consultees have been consulted and provided a final response of no objection. As outlined in the report, through the planning obligations, if a section 106 is agreed following this committee, this would include securing 100% affordable housing, contributions towards health, contributions to play and open space in the locality, contribution towards education, libraries, the local public rights of way, highways and also ecology, as previously stated. In terms of the planning balance, permission should be granted unless adverse impacts would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies in the NPPF taken as a whole. Whilst there is the conflict with policy ED1, with the 6 tests for employment sites not having been fully satisfied, weighed against this conflict is paragraph 128A of the framework and the surrounding residential context in this area of high housing demand. This conflict is afforded limited weight. No other conflict with the development plan has been identified. Weighed against the conflict with the development plan is the government's commitment to significantly boosting the supply of housing through the framework. It is considered that this application can meet the 3 overarching objectives of sustainability by providing new jobs, new dwellings, meeting the social and environmental needs through the additional dwellings and through the contributions that would be sought. Planning obligations are also set out in the legal agreement which would address any adverse impacts of the development. It's a sustainable form of development in terms of its urban location and the mix of housing types and tenures to be provided. It is considered that the proposal addresses the key material planning considerations such as character and design, residential amenity, highway safety, parking, the environmental health issues, flooding, drainage and ecology, and therefore complying with the local plan and the NPPF. Therefore, the recommendation is for this application to be approved, subject to the draft decision notice appended in the committee report and a completion of a Section 106 agreement, and to include the additional amendments and conditions and informative outlined in the addendum to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And of course, this was a site visit earlier on today, subject of a site visit, and various questions were asked of the officers then, but are there any questions of clarification now? Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. I'm moving away from it because it sounds really dodgy. I sent an email in regarding trip generation about 16.5 regarding what's going to happen, because I'm really concerned about Boughton Roads, because you've got that's one of the main roads into Holton. You've got 6,000 properties there. Now, looking at the report here, it was done in the summer of 2023, summer which probably would be the summer holidays, I assume. And so I don't think it's actually a fair report to say it. So I'm a bit concerned about the highway. So I don't know what we can do, any other further information to put my mind at ease, because putting this extra traffic onto that road, and also with the problems at Mill Road as well towards the train station, Technology Drive and things like that, I feel this report is done at the best possible time. If it was done in winter or autumn when you've got school traffic and things like that, then I'd be a bit more happy with this report. Thank you.
We'll get a response and we'll move on to Councillor Sanderson. He's champing at the bit.
So yes, through you, Chair. Obviously, the application obviously was Warwickshire County Council were consulted on the application and have had significant involvement, because there's been several iterations of the plans and layout. Normally, they are, even if they have concerns about the trip generation and the data produced, they would actually advise us of it. They haven't done in this particular location. They are, content that it was done. I think it was done just before the main school holidays. I believe it was done on the 15th of July. Oh, right, okay. Well, what I understand is it was done on the 15th of July, which is just before our main Warwickshire holidays. I appreciate there are other schools that may break up before then, but that's actually when it was done. I think, obviously, if it had been done later on, because I believe then obviously, yes, Warwickshire Highways and probably us as officers would have had a greater concern. But I understand that date is detailed in the road safety audit. So it's probably hidden in the documentation. but I believe that's actually when it was done. So that's possibly why then Warwickshire County Council Highways haven't raised that as a concern with us, but normally they do, to be fair, if it was done during the holiday period.
Okay, do you want to come back on that? You're okay?
Yeah, thank you for that. Obviously, with this, it says summer 2023, it's not very clear. The thing I don't understand is Boughton Road regarding that's the trip for there, because you've got 6,000 properties at Holton. You've got people going from the M6, M1, cutting through there. Why has that not been taken into consideration as well? Because I mean, I've got no problems with building, but we need the infrastructure to go with it. At the moment, that infrastructure around that area, rush hour, mornings and evenings, can't cope already, and we're going to put some more properties on it.
Let's, Councillor Sanders, and the
Yeah,
other comments I will make, because you've
we are still in questions to the officer and not into debate. And in terms of for those of us that went on the site visit, which was so informative, there were some, this is a former office block. You can see it's a very large office block. One concern I had was the drainage culvert between the old estate and what will become the new estate. And I'm having a look through the conditions here, and I can't see that there doesn't seem to be a condition in there that said that drainage culvert should be well maintained, for example, because that drainage culvert is actually in the rear gardens of where the new homes are proposed. So I think we need, if the officer could come back on that, please.
when we get into debate, we'll have a discussion on that, see whether we might have an affirmative or something.
I can answer, I can answer that in part now, is that the actual drainage culvert that we saw on site actually lies outside the application site boundary. So obviously it's outside the control of the application before you. However, you'll notice that conditions 11, 12 and 13, thank you, do deal with surface water and sustainable drainage solutions. So obviously with regard to the actual runoff on this site, then obviously there are conditions in place to ensure that it doesn't make the situation worse. But obviously with regard to that actual culvert, or that open culvert that we saw, the open stream or brook or whatever it was that we saw on site, obviously that's outside the application site. So obviously whoever's responsibility of that, it will be their responsibility.
But you believe there's enough mitigation to manage that?
Yeah, the conditions obviously will be, technical consultees will be consulted on the conditions as well.
Councillor Sevastova.
Highway has done the traffic modelling. Was there any consultation with the local residents on Water Road in that area? And what was the feedback? Any feedback from highway authorities in terms of traffic modelling?
Yeah, well, local residents will have been consulted on the application. I don't believe it will have been directly from the Highways Authority. They will have carried out their statutory consultee requirements in terms of their response that they have provided. I am aware that concerns were raised in regards to traffic issues and highway impact. That was the response to the application from local residents.
Right. Councillor Carradine.
In the application, there is a mention of soft landscaping, and there are quite a few soft landscaping issues going on in Eden Park and Cotton Park, which I see on a daily basis, where they put grass verges in between two properties. So if there is a wheelchair user or a powered chair user, they can't travel from their house to wherever they want to travel because the wheel spins there. Is there any consideration in the application which an equality or equity impact assessment has been done? Sorry? Equality impact. That's the one.
As outlined on the site plan, there is access, I believe, to each front door that goes to each building that doesn't require going over any soft surfaces. It should all have a hard landscape path to be able to enter each of the dwellings proposed.
Sorry, can I give a little bit of clarification? It's not entering into the property, it is the pathway throughout the estate itself. A person can get down from the car and go into the property without any problem. But if they need to get out of the estate using a wheelchair or a powered chair, then there should be a good pavement for them to travel. And the pavement places are nowadays with the new builds in Eden Park and Cotton Park, we have quite a lot of grass verges where the tire spins.
Yeah, just while the case officer's looking at that, I'm aware of the Eden Park site. I'm aware that when that scheme was looked at, and some of those first phases that were back in sort of 2010, 2011, some of the substitutory, the some minor roads that run off the side of the main road were part of like of a home zone scheme. So the idea was that the road surface and the pedestrian surface was shared in order to cause traffic, I think, to be much slower. Now, I think lessons have perhaps been learnt from that treatment, and I noticed on this particular scheme we now have actually pavements that actually do go round the roads. So there actually are, as well as the hard surface from the front door to the parking areas, there is actually, if someone does choose to go by, with push chairs as well as wheelchairs, they can actually access the site on the existing on a proposed pavement network throughout the site, and then join up with pavement network along, say, Projects Drive, for instance. So I think the concerns you have that I'm aware of separately have been addressed within this particular layout.
Okay. Thank you very much for your clarification. I have another question.
Go ahead.
No, I forgot. Sorry. 1 second. I'll come back to you.
What we'll do, we'll move on to... Oh, you got it. Okay.
There is a proposed playground on site. Park area. Who is going to maintain that, and is there a management fees going to be included in the sale?
There's two different types of open space, or various different types of open space. It is more amenity space that is provided, and the on-site is for only amenity green space, so it's not specifically play areas. That's going to be covered by contributions off-site, as outlined in paragraph 17.24. Of the report that states where those would be going within close proximity within the guidance in terms of distance from properties. So based on the size of the site, that's not being provided on site, but there is those that the contributions provided to within the locality.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to the speaker, the agent, Chris Lindley. You okay? You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members, and thank you for the opportunity to address you in support of this application for affordable homes at Projects Drive, Rugby. My name is Chris Lindley of RG&P. I'm a chartered town planner, and I represent the applicant Borough Partnerships and their delivery partner Orbit. There is an acute need for affordable housing in Rugby, with over 400 households listed on the council's register. Your support is vital to the success of this scheme that will provide local people in housing need a modern, purpose-built, energy-efficient and adaptable dwelling to call home, in a location which is accessible to a full range of local services and facilities. Today marks an important step in the regeneration of this brownfield site following the relocation of its former occupiers to another local premises, and it becoming available for development. The positive and robust report before you represents many months of constructive work with your officers and a full range of consultees. By comparison to other developments, including the preceding item on the agenda, this proposal has attracted a relatively low level of interest from local residents, with only 10 objections being submitted. Nonetheless, the views expressed are still very important, and we've sought positive and constructive dialogue with the local elected representative. All local concerns have been fully and reasonably addressed in the committee report, but I wish to point out some key factors to you. Firstly, the vehicle trips generated by this scheme will be reduced by over 50% when compared to the lawful commercial use. There is no objection from the local highway authority in terms of the function of the local highway network or highway safety. Secondly, the design response has been refined with the council's urban designer to ensure that all dwellings achieve relevant amenity standards and deliver functional, usable open spaces. Whilst it's regrettable that a high-quality tree will be lost, it will be replaced with substantial new tree planting of a specification and species which has been agreed with the tree officer. Thirdly, our client will deliver the scheme using sustainable building techniques, including enhanced insulation, timber frame construction, air source heat pumps and solar renewable energy generation. Borough, as an environmentally driven, responsible contractor, commit to a zero landfill and full recycling approach to waste. They prepare detailed and thorough construction management plans and communicate openly with the local community throughout the build. Finally, this development will provide a full range of financial contributions towards local infrastructure as part of a comprehensive legal agreement, including contributions towards education, health, place-based provision, libraries, pedestrian crossings and bus services. Given the robust recommendation before you, you can be confident there will be no harm on many matters of acknowledged importance, and I respectfully commend the officer recommendation to you. Thank you, members.
Thanks for that. The speaker did raise some interesting points. Have the councillors got any questions, or can we move on to the next speaker? Okay. All right, in that case then we'll move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Councillor Nuria. I just want to say that from the information that I've received, the Highways Authority have raised no substantive objection to the scheme, subject to appropriate planning conditions. Okay, so I just wanted to start with that. On behalf of residents, I would like to request the committee address the traffic impact on the Boughton Road, as already mentioned, and the adjacent road network. I recommend the following conditions be applied to include a traffic management plan and a specific measures at the junction of Projects Drive leading to the busy Boughton Road to ensure the safety of residents, motorists and pedestrians. As far back as May 2007, the Rugby Area Committee meeting discussed the proposed abandonment of the Boughton Road Relief Road, which would have been built from Waterside Drive off Boughton Road, extending to the Tesco site. This relief road was part of a plan to alleviate the rising level of traffic on the road network in the area. Back then, the Area Committee said, quote, "It endorses investigation of the opportunities for reducing the impact of traffic on Boughton Road following the redevelopment of the former Alstom GEC site. This relief road never materialised, and over the years, residents have had to put up with increasing traffic flow year in, year out. Here we are again several years later, and over the years, residents have had to put up with this. This is a serious point. The traffic issues along the Boughton Road in Brownsover and adjacent roads have been well documented over the years in these chambers. And as a fast-growing town, the problems are being ignored, one development after the other, and just getting worse over the years. Our residents have said time and time again that they want to see the implementation of a sustainable traffic management plan and measures to help alleviate problems such as speeding, parking, traffic congestion and safety concerns for drivers and pedestrians. Additional cars on the road will only exacerbate what is already a busy through road with traffic emerging from the M6 motorway through the busy Leicester Road into the Boughton Road, which leads to the large 6,200 homes Holton housing development, the Rugby railway station used by Rugby commuters, the popular Clifton Primary School and the Butler's Leap Industrial Estate. The proposed 108 dwellings will detrimentally impact the Boughton Road with increased traffic movement, which will be unsafe for the elderly, children going to school, road users, pedestrians. I urge the committee to recall we have been here in these chambers time and time again discussing the busy Boughton Road. Please be mindful of these concerns regarding overdevelopment and the capacity of the road network. A traffic management plan and the implementation of specific traffic measures at the junction of Projects Drive and the Boughton Road with parking and safety considerations. Specific measures could include a change in speed limit on the Boughton Road both ways to 30 miles per hour instead of 40 miles and three-way traffic light at the junction of Projects Drive and Boughton Road. Please be mindful.
Well done. Well done. Thank you.
That's okay.
Right, you're going to have to leave the chamber now. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the points raised by the member regarding traffic management in the area, I mean, I do know this particular... This is awful. I think I'm going to put it into... It's all right. Just, it doesn't like you talking to it. I know that particular piece of road is a real problem in terms of traffic congestion. But I think members put a lot of support into to a relief road. Who can forget the Bilton bypass that never, ever happened and was subsequently replaced by the Western Relief Road some 10 or 20 years later? So are there any mitigation measures in terms of traffic management proposed by the County Council in terms of their contributions that they've requested?
I can do. I'm Lucy's looking it up. Obviously, it's detailed in the agenda under the planning obligations. There's a table below paragraph 17.41. The main contributions from highways are in relation to improvements to the local bus network, and also into crossing improvements in connection with the giving priority to cycle tracks, together then with road safeties. Obviously, some of the comments that have been made, what has to be bared in mind in this particular case is that we have an existing employment use on the site, and the trip generation figures do, as actually was pointed out by one of the speakers, result in a big reduction in trip generation. So that will be probably one of the reasons why the county highways haven't asked for a sort of suite of contribution requests, because actually, as far as they're concerned, there's actually a betterment for this site. But we are getting contributions towards public transport and also to immediate in the area footpath and cycleway improvements.
Just to add, yeah, so it's the public transport. There is a contribution that will go towards securing improvements to the local bus service, and that's to help support forecasted demand by sustainable means. There's also a contribution then, as Richard said, to the improved crossing provision and priority crossings on the cycle track. There is also a contribution which is linked to each dwelling proposed for road safety, and there's also the conditions in regards to packs in regards to the provision of residential travel packs has to be provided. That's outlined in condition 27, and then it's also hoped that there's also the provision of the on-site cycle storage for residents, so hopefully they would take that opportunity at a sustainable urban location as another means of transport.
Thank you. Councillor Carradine.
Thank you, Chair. I'm repeatedly hearing this is already an existing working employment site, and there are cars going in and out of the site, and if it is becoming a residential site, then the traffic will go half from that particular site. But my understanding is that site stopped operational a year ago. So that means for the past 1 year there is no cars going in and out, and it took 20 minutes delay for me to cross that particular road today, and this is in the morning and in the evening, so I'm not sure how it is going to reduce any traffic in that area.
Yeah, the councillor is correct that yes, it's not currently being actively used by the owner of the site, but that is currently the existing approved use of the site. So if the decision was, no matter what the decision was in this application this evening, the current owner or another owner, that is the approved use, and subject to renovation of the current building, that economic and employment site could be brought into use, in which case the trip standard that it has been assessed against could then be what was brought back into use of the site, and therefore then the surrounding area would have to deal with that trip generation. So that's why it's assessed, if this application were to be approved and built out, that then there would actually be a lower trip generation than if the existing use was brought back.
Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. The whole application, I think we need these houses, but the biggest concern is the roads. The infrastructure is not there. I've just remembered from 2023, when they did the report, they were doing a wind down on site. There was no one in there. They were giving away free office equipment because I had a friend that works there. So for me personally, I'm really stuck with Boughton Road. How are we going to fit over 6,000 properties driving possibly extra vehicle journeys through there? Also as well, there's safety there as well. And yet again, Warwickshire County Council hasn't sent anyone from highways. So we can't scrutinise, we can't ask the information, and we rely on the officers for what's going on. And I think we need to actually say to Warwickshire County Council they need to be here, because I don't think it's fair on the officers trying to give the information. They're the experts. We need experts in here. So I just want to know, is any conditions we can do? Because I think the problem is that is going to be the issue, because we're going to put this property in, and I think this will get approved tonight. But what's going to happen in 6, 12, 18 months, 2 years' time, when you get more houses at Holton, and we're going to have problems on that road? It's a bottleneck at the moment, and we're not addressing it. So for me personally, I am really, really concerned about it.
Okay, the only thing I will say, I'll probably drive down that road at least 5 or 6 times every week for the last 50 years. And of course, in its present employment use, or its former employment use, it would have had all the employees going in at the same time and coming out at the same time. That couldn't have a higher impact. With dwellings there, they will sort of come in and come out at varying time, no doubt. But it is difficult because, you know, as we all know, Holton is being built out, and some traffic is going to come that way, some traffic will go the other way. And what I've found anyway, since COVID, we found where people are doing a lot of work from home, we're finding now that they're actually starting to go back more to work, and it's put a bit more traffic on the road. But what it is doing is pushing traffic out through into the villages, running through the villages to escape the traffic jams. But Neil and I, the Vice Chair and I, were on the site visit today. We asked numerous questions, and I'm quite happy with the proposals, and I don't mind moving approval from the Chair. Councillor Sanderson.
Yes. Yeah. To second the recommendation, Chair. I understand what the councillor is saying about Holton, but the county council had lots of dust from the development of Holton. It should be investing some of that money into the upgrading the local transport infrastructure. We cannot claim this smaller development, tiny development, if you put it in some context for Holton, which was 6,500 homes. I think the county councillors need for that area need to be asking some very serious questions at Shire Hall about where's the money gone and why hasn't it improved the road infrastructure.
Well, just to give you a bit more info on that, is that we have identified the A426 to Leicester Road as the bottleneck. Traffic isn't flowing up and down it as it should be. And the Magna Park development has already provided S106 monies to do improvements to the Gibbet Hill roundabout junction. That is on the cards. The A5 Partnership Committee sit regularly, and they've identified that is a priority junction to get sorted. So at the moment, that committee is lobbying all our local MPs to get some money to get that sorted, to get the traffic flowing. So that's my little wish.
But in terms of this application, we've got to look at it on its own merits. And as we know, Chair, we lost, following Grenfell and the calamitous state we find our high-rise dwellings in, we lost the former Byatt Place site. We lost the former Rounds Garden site. That was a substantive loss of social housing, stroke affordable housing within the inner urban areas of the borough. This goes a little way to replacing some of that housing stock, but we're still going to need some more to meet the total loss of housing that we've incurred following Grenfell.
Thank you for that, Councillor. If there's no more speakers, then we'll move to the vote. We've had a proposer and a seconder for approval. All those in favour, please show. Well, that's unanimous. Well done. Thank you for that. So that is approved. Moving on down the agenda. We haven't got to that one yet, Councillor Sanderson. We haven't got to that one. It's advance notice of site visits.
I've received none further, thank you, Chair.
Right. Now we move on to item 6 on the agenda, delegated decisions. Just a quick message to our technical team, if they're listening in on this YouTube thing. Can we have these microphones sorted once and for all, please? You know, come on, get your screwdrivers out and your stethoscope and sort it. Well done. That